for today, Monday, August 24th at 4:45 p.m. Please join me, if you will, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. It's our first thing here on the agenda. It's a discussion about shredding day. From my understanding, it's all set from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. But Al, we're looking to extend it 1 hour. Is that correct?
Yeah. So one of the things that happened, and maybe Kathy would be better equipped to speak to this, but I had asked her if she had a general idea what type of amount of stuff to shred the town had, and so she had reached out to a number of departments and came up with a pretty considerable number. So my concern after hearing that was that who knows how busy we're going to be with residents between 9 and 11. So our group had talked about seeing if the town wanted to, just for the town offices, have extended by 1 hour. So go from say 11 to 12 for the town only, meaning the town offices only, and not residents. The cost should be somewhere right around $200, if not, just for that extra hour. The SALT committee has funds to pay for the residents.
Okay. Welcome, Jay. Good to see you. All right. Well, I don't have an issue with it, and I'll accept a motion, either Jen or Jay, regards to it, to extend it for 1 hour.
So moved.
Okay. Any further discussion at this time?
Yeah, I think we got a win-win here. Why don't we just let Al and the SALT committee go forward and let Florence Bank sponsor the thing, and then we'll hold another one. I mean, with the COVID-19, I don't think we're going to get a lot of people that really want to venture out. So I think the more events we have, the better. So I would say let Al, Florence Bank, and SALT go ahead with their normal schedule, and then we'll just plan another one down the road.
Well, I think they are going to go ahead with the normal schedule, 9 to 11. The extra hour is going to be for the town offices, so they can shred for that hour.
I understand that. I'm just saying we could do another one for town shredding and invite the residents to that one and give the town residents more opportunities than just one day.
I think we can do both. I think it's an extra $200. I don't think it's that much. The vehicle's already there, the truck and stuff like that's already there, so the equipment's there. I think we're just paying for the extra hour for them to be there. Is that correct, Al?
That would be correct, yes. We checked, and there is an extra hour available after that 9 to 11 slot. And honestly, to Jay's point, we don't really know how many people are going to come out. I assume if we tell ProShred we need you between 9 and 12, they're going to charge us that hour, even if we say we're done at 11. But what I'd hate to have happen is I'd hate for the town the town offices to take up, let's just say, a half hour. I don't know how long it'll take. Let's just say it's a half hour, 40 minutes. And then during that time, we have residents backing up. I hope that we have residents backing up. That would mean there's a really successful program. But to Jay's point, we really don't know. But I was thinking that by extending it that 1 hour, it would assure the town, offices would be able to get it done, what they need to get done for a relatively, small amount of money for the town.
Yeah, I would think the same. The two, it's very reasonable, $200. And I know I was talking to Chris as well. In just regards to something we could help out with the seniors who may not be able to come and shred paper. Maybe we could acquire some type of box we can drop off, and they can put their stuff in it. They can seal it up, and Chris did offer up Jeremy to go around and pick up the items that would need to be shred, so at least we can do that too to help some of the seniors out. It's even, we can like even simple enough to drop off like a box on someone's door and then say, okay, we'll make arrangements, we'll come back at a time, we'll pick it up and take it away. Just kind of try to help out the seniors a little bit more. There's a function for them. So when any way we could help with that, I think we would try. So
Myself, I'm using the buyable, degradable leaf bags, paper leaf bags. And you can get 25 of them for $10 at BJ's. And I'm just throwing all my papers in then. So when it comes time for me to go to shred, I'm just gonna say, here's a 30-gallon bag, just throw it in. And I'm
Right.
done.
okay, I was just thinking something that we could do so people feel reassured that what they're putting in there, people aren't looking at, it's kind of sealed or something like that, because usually what people are shredding are documents and things like that, they don't want people to see, so I'm trying a security point somehow to do it. If you bring it yourself, you may not be too concerned with it because you're giving it to someone, but if someone else is picking it up, we should maybe look at some kind of security part, but that's just a thought, so we can maybe reach more people as far as the
Yeah.
seniors and stuff.
Glenn, I really do agree with that thought. However, you had mentioned Chris saying maybe Jeremy could swing by, pick it up. I don't know if people would necessarily be comfortable with that. I mean, most people do know Jeremy or know of him. I don't know. I think from a personal level, it might be, I would be more comfortable giving my personal documents to somebody in uniform. Sorry, Al, in your department. It might just be an extra level of comfort there. Does that make sense?
That's something we can discuss, but I have, the trust in all our town employees is the
Oh,
same.
I 100% do as well.
If someone is asking for that to be picked up and they're aware of who the employee is that's coming, that's our part to ensure that they feel comfortable that this is the employee, they're gonna be coming at this time to pick up the information or pick up the items to be shred. So we can talk more about that, look at different options, but I just think maybe we can look at that. We think it's something reasonable, feasible to do, then we should do that. That's all.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and I'm sure if necessary, if the board were, looking to do that and needed some sort of maybe cooperative effort between, the Jeremy and buildings, and maybe I send a guy with them for a couple of hours or
Yeah.
whatever you think.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, and I think no matter, whether we're involved in that piece of it or not, we can work that out. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea where maybe have Jeremy go around with the pickup truck and we have an officer go around with him too. Just more for security or what have you. I think that's.
Yeah,
Sure.
I agree
No,
with that.
win-win.
I would be very
Yeah.
comfortable with that situation.
Where do
Maybe
you
it would-
plan on getting the boxes from?
We can look at that. We can look at what's available and, or, some maybe people with, in their own boxes. I know we can maybe even, I can talk to Chris. You can pick up boxes from Home Depot for almost $1.50 a piece. And they're good sized boxes that people can put stuff in and stuff like that. So I think there's availability for us to do things like that. I don't think we're gonna, I think if we bought 50 boxes, would be fine.
I think we'd be more than
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. So, like I said, and we can supply some type of tape, and when they go out there, they receive it, they wrap it up, it's sealed, so people feel more comfortable, I guess, with that.
Yeah.
All right, well, so back to where we were, there was a motion. I was looking for a second, we were in discussion. Is there any more discussion on that? All right, so we can probably look at having Jeremy and Al, if you want to look at an officer as well, maybe to go out with them for a couple hours. We can plan it accordingly and just take care of it and notify the seniors that what we'll be doing. We can work with the Council on Aging as well, set that up.
Yeah, I'll talk to Chloe. I think talk to Chloe or Amanda this week, and we'll try to figure something out.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Thank you.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Thank you, folks. All right, well, that's all set. Now we're moving into Al's presentation from the bylaw committee. General bylaws, public hearing at this time. Um, Al, do you want to open it up or are you all set?
No, I can certainly open it up. I recognize that it's still 4 or 5 minutes before 5 is concerned for anybody, or thank you, Aaron.
We can wait the 5 minutes, I guess. I don't want to, because if we're going to start going over it, I think we can open up the meeting at this time.
Okay.
But I wouldn't start going over any of the information until 5 o'clock to be fair to people.
I don't even see any of my committee members yet either.
Okay, so
Not that
we'll
they
wait.
necessarily have to be here, but we're not making any decisions tonight, so
Right. All right.
when you're ready, and we'll roll.
Well, we can wait. Either way, we're gonna wait till 5 o'clock, so we can wait till 5, whether we open it now and then wait to discuss it till 5. I guess we can wait till 5.
Okay.
Then we're all set.
Yeah, there's not, from what I can see, it just looks like there's one caller and then Melina from the Sentinel, from what I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, so.
Yes, yep.
Jen, when do you think you have the water pipeline stuff done? Any idea?
I was planning on getting that all finalized this weekend, and then my weekend kind of went to hell in a handbasket. So I was working on it right before the meeting started, and I should have it to Kathy by tonight.
Thank you.
No problem.
Kathy, did you see the, you may not have seen it yet. I sent you an email, you and Chris, an email about the protocols from ProShred?
So you're saying yes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure you got that, that's all.
This one out?
That's the one. Perfect.
Gentlemen, pick a color, red or green.
Green.
Red. I don't know. Did I miss something?
I missed it too, if you did.
I don't know if you meant like red or green, mean talking or not talking with the
I
mic.
don't.
No, it wasn't stop or go, don't worry.
Hey guys.
Right.
Hi, Brian, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Not used to this work stuff. I'm sorry. I spent a beautiful week in Maine and Jacket.
Hello.
Hi, Virginia.
Hello? What's that? Hey, Jenny.
Hi.
Are you guys still getting thunder rumbling everywhere?
Yeah.
Not here.
a little
I
bit
wish
here
it
and there.
would just open up and pour in that case, because we have perfectly blue skies, but it is really rumbling.
It's just over your door, honey.
I wouldn't be surprised. The way this week has gone, Brian, I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, God. Alan, you're dark.
I don't know what to do about that. I've got all the lights in this office as bright as I can. I've tried moving around. I don't know. The good thing is that I'll be sharing my screen pretty soon, so you won't. You would think too, with my bald head, you'd get much more of a shine, but
Oh, my.
Al, I
like the
can hear you
sun.
talking, I can't see you.
Yeah, my head is like the sun, you know, it just reflects everything. So, see if I
Think
get
it's the
really
windows
close.
behind you. Is it,
But
is it
I'll
the
be sure,
maybe, or what?
I didn't hear you, Brian.
Is it the windows behind you, maybe?
I think it may be. I have the shades down, but it's so bright.
Listen, you got 3 people on here that can buy you shades, so negotiate.
Absolutely.
Nothing fancy, you know, they're
No,
on
no,
the old kind.
just effective.
All right, it's 5 o'clock, Al, if you wish to open up your public hearing.
Great.
the
So
bylaw
we
review
will open up the public hearing. I'm just going to close my door real quick. So we'll open up the public hearing and the bylaw review committee meeting. So I show it as 5:01. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with everybody. Actually, it would be real helpful if everybody that's not talking could mute. And then I'm going to share my screen with everybody at some point here.
Al, what's the procedure for asking questions?
I'm going to get right into that, John.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So everybody should be looking at the first slide, bylaw review committee. Can everybody see that? Shake your head, yes, okay. So a lot of this is going to be review for anybody that was here for public hearing number 1 back, I don't remember the date, whenever that was. So there's a lot of this that is review. So just to give you a quick history of the bylaw review committee, we were appointed by the select board a long time ago. We've met a lot. We've requested a ton of information from the public, town employees, and other elected officials. And we've come to, this is about where we've come to with the document. We think it serves us well. To give you a brief synopsis of what the bylaw review or change process looks like from this point forward, we have to, by law, have public hearings, which is what we're doing today. As of right now, we will have to schedule one other public hearing to get through the last sections of the bylaws. So after those public hearings, the select board has to get the whatever document it is, whatever the end bylaw review document looks like. We have to get that on a town meeting warrant. At that point, that's when the town itself has to approve it. If the town does approve it at town meeting, then we have to send it to the Attorney General for their approval. After that happens and we get the approval, our bylaws will change. Now, there's one really important exception to that process, and that is the recall bylaw that is new. And we talked about that in the last public hearing. And that is a very different process. That requires a special act of legislation. So that's different. It's not a regular bylaw. And I just say that kind of to make sure everybody's on the same page. So like I said, this is all review. One of the things that we really have to do, we have to really start moving forward because we could be in a constant state of always trying to change these and tweak these and do, minor little incremental changes. But at some point we need to start moving forward. And when I say that, I also say that with the understanding that our bylaws are a living document. Just because we pass something at town meeting and it gets approved, that doesn't mean that that's going to be our bylaws for the next 100 years. They can change anytime we want to. So they change at will, and they follow the changes would follow the same processes that we've already done. So our goal tonight is going to be able to take a quick look at the bylaws in those sections that we've talked about. To kind of expedite this is kind of uncharted ground for us in terms of the virtual public hearing. I know we've done a lot of meetings, but the public hearing is a little bit different. So John, to answer your question, what I'd like to try to do, and I'm going to do my best at, is if you could place questions for the people that are on their computers or their cell phones that have the ability to place a question in the chat box. I'll be able to see that, and that'll be my cue at the end of each slide, which basically each slide is a chapter or section type of thing where we've made changes. I'll say, are there any questions? If you could put your questions in the chat box, that'd be great. Even just a brief summary. Hey, Al, it's John. I've got a question about whatever. And then that'll be my cue to go ahead and ask that question. Now, if there's anybody who's uncomfortable with that, or if there's anybody who's calling in from a phone where they can't text, I will ask at the end of each slide, are there any questions? And I'll address the ones that I can see in chat first. And if then I'll ask, are there any other questions from anybody on the line? At that point, anybody who's on the phone who can't text can ask a question. Go ahead, John, I see your hand up.
Where is the chat box?
You see, it looks like a little bubble, like a, my screen is collapsed now because I'm presenting, so I can't, let me see here.
Top
Looks-
right-hand corner, John.
Up in the top right-hand corner?
Yep.
Right
Okay,
next to the little settings gear.
I got it. I see it. Thank you very much. Are you starting with chapter 1?
No, nope. No, we've already been through all of those, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to review let me get through this, John, and then
Sure.
we're not going through the entirety of the document. We've already been through chapters 1 through 8, I think it was. So let's keep moving. So again, regardless of what happens at these hearings, the town's going to need to approve and amend these bylaws at the town meeting. So we're not going to be making any major decisions tonight. But we will consider and discuss, our group will consider and discuss any suggestions that are made, any questions that come up. We will make there is a copy of this draft document available on the town website. And any changes that we make to it after this meeting, we will certainly update that as well. So where we left off from the last meeting was the first meeting, we discussed a number of chapters and sections. And from that discussion, from the last public hearing, we made some changes. One of the more major changes was related to the budget process. And what we did in that process, in that change, is reworded the sections to make them more accurately portray the budget process as we wanted it and as it actually exists. And for anybody who's here for the first public hearing, one of the big changes that we made was we kind of started to delineate who has what roles in the budget process. For instance, what role does the select board play, or what role does the town administrator play, and probably even a bigger part, what role should the finance committee play? So we looked around, we did some research, and we came up with what we thought was reflective of that research. At the public hearing, some members of the public, including members of the finance committee, had brought up some very legitimate questions. Then they attended a couple of our meetings. We really kind of looked at all the questions and suggestions they had, and then we kind of melted everything that we had together with what they said, with what we were looking to do. So really, the sections, the intent of the sections hasn't changed. The wording has changed a bit, though, and I can bring both of those up for you if you'd like. Give me 1 second. So you should be able to see them side by side now. Is that correct? Yeah. So on the left-hand side, again, that was the initial proposed changes that we made. And one of the big changes was that it really kind of delineated the difference between who is responsible for submitting the budget. How do you handle situations where, by way of example, the select board or the town administrator have one version of the budget, and yet the finance committee maybe has a different version that they think makes more sense. And what we've basically done is said, okay, this is how the process is going to go. Generally speaking, and certainly, John, you can attest to this. Generally speaking, going into town meeting, the budget is agreed. Very rarely is it not agreed upon. So there can be an issue there. There's a possibility for an issue, but usually it's agreed upon, with maybe some smaller exceptions as to where money might be coming from for a specific article. But what the budget process does now is it allows for that sort of disagreement to be in writing ahead of time. So if by way of example, let's just say the town administrator put forth budget A, And yet the select board didn't necessarily agree with it, or the finance committee had a different suggestion about how to get that done. It allows for their suggestions to be in writing as part of the budget process, so people can see it and understand it ahead of time. So that's really the only changes, and it's not a change from what we intended last time we talked about this, but it is a change in the wording. So I wanted to make sure that we discussed it a bit. Give me 1 second. Other than that, that was really the only change. There was wording changes that were basically, not basically, they were written by the members of the finance committee. And I should probably take a second. I know I'm speaking very quickly here, but I should probably take a second to thank the members of the finance committee, because they spent a lot of time with us in the meeting and on their own, kind of developing language that we were trying to get to, and that they were helping us get to. And certainly I think the end product is much better because of their input. So I thank you all very much for that. This was by far, with the exception of maybe the recall bylaw, the most difficult piece of the kind of bylaw puzzle for us. So thank you to the members of the finance committee for helping us out on that. And so I'm going to get out of these briefly. So are there any questions in regards to the budget process, or just the rewording of those chapters and sections? John, did you have something?
I'd like to, first of all, thank you for your appreciation of the work that the Finance Committee did. I want to use just a second and tell people who are listening that after the first budget hearing, the one thing which was very, very helpful from that hearing was we went back and did an analysis of what's included in the budget. And we came to some conclusions that I think surprised the Finance Committee a little bit, and I think surprised the Bylaw Review Committee of exactly how much of the budget is really non-discretionary. And that, in fact, makes the whole process work a little bit easier. And it helps, I think, people understand why there's always such agreement on the budget, and that you don't have a choice about a whole lot of the budget.
Yeah, and that again, when you guys came forward with that information, it was very helpful. And I think we all end up kind of, maybe in the beginning we didn't see so eye to eye on where we were trying to go, and but I think in the end we kind of did. And you know, that's probably a great example of I don't know, democracy in action. You know, everybody's listening with an open mind, and I think we came up with a pretty decent product, especially considering what we were hoping to get. So thank you very much. Is there any other questions from any of the callers in regard to the budget process? Okay. Having heard none, I don't see any in the chat box. I'm going to keep moving. So along the lines of the same type of changes since the last public hearing, we did make some wording changes to the finance committee section, but again, they mimic what we were doing with the budget process. They just you really can't change one without changing the other. So I can certainly put these up side by side if anybody would like to see. The reality of it is, it just more accurately portrays what our budget process looks like now, and kind of more clearly identifies and delineates the lines of who's responsible for what and what we're going to do if there's any disagreement in those. Again, I can show those if you'd like. You've had people, there's public access to them, but yeah, like I said, it just mimics the ideas related in the budget area as well. I don't see any questions in regards to the finance committee in the chat. Any questions or comments from anybody on the phone? Okay, I'm gonna keep moving. At the last meeting, the town clerk had come in with some suggestions. Basically what we did was we added a list of responsibilities that she had suggested from the last public hearing. Again, those are available online if anybody wants to see them. They're not earth shattering. They're probably what you would expect the town clerk to have been doing. And all we did was outline what her responsibilities are. If anybody has any comments or questions about that, I'd be happy to share that, and we can go through it line by line if you want to. The only changes to it is just that we basically listed some of her responsibilities like we have in a lot of the other areas. I don't see any questions in chat. Any?
I have a question.
Sure.
If you go back to, in this document on page 9, section 3, about town administrators, subsection 6, subsection 3. That, and this is a question both about the town collector and the town treasurer. It says that the town administrator shall manage the town's financial affairs and blah, 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 and shall supervise the financial management of the town, which shall encompass and include the financial responsibilities and activities of the treasurer, town collector, assessors, and town accountant. I'd like a little bit of clarification about what that means compared to what it says about the duties of the town clerk are, and whether or not we are taking away some independence of the town clerk, or how exactly those fit together. And I understand that I'm sorry, the town collector. I understand that the town collector and the treasurer, there's always been discussions about whether or not they should be appointed officials or really actually employees of the town rather than elected officials. But I'm not certain that this thing hangs together for what's said about the duties of the administrator and the duties of the town collector and the duties of the town treasurer. So any clarification on that?
I certainly can try. Can you narrow that question in a little bit? I'm not exactly sure what you're asking.
Well, it looks like from the definition of what the town administrator does, the town administrator is supposed to manage the financial responsibilities and activities of the treasurer and the town collector. And yet they're independently elected officials. And there are even some things that are in the descriptions of what the town collector does and what the town treasurer does, which would say that they are not under the control of the town administrator. One example might be even it's another question with having to do with in the section on what the responsibility of the select board are. They talk about the select board is responsible for a lot of things, including appointing the lawyers for the town and special counsel for special things. But that also doesn't seem to me to be entirely consistent about the wording about what the town clerk does or does not ask for legal assistance in something, and also whether or not the town treasurer has the authority to appoint legal counsel for things which that says the town treasurer is responsible for.
So I can tell you that the initial wording you talked about relative to the town administrator kind of overseeing the financial piece of that, the intent, first of all, we completely recognize that some of those are elected positions, and we also recognize kind of the troublesome area of, requiring a elected official to do anything, or to, I don't want to say discipline, but manage it. So, but we also recognize that there's a piece of what they do that has a very important financial impact, and that there's got to be some sort of coordinated effort towards that. That's why the wording is reflected in the town administrator's kind of responsibilities. As far as, I'm trying to go back to what your question was. As far as there are two differences relative to the select board and the town administrator in terms of appointing different types of counsel. And our group went over that, for a long time and talked about the different situations in which the select board, for instance, would need counsel or appoint town council, and also for the town administrator as well in different situations. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, or maybe it's just maybe it's more of a statement that some work needs to be done in that area. I'm not sure if I can answer the question any better than that.
Okay, for example, it says that if the town collector says that suits should be instituted and prosecuted in the name of the town collector shall advise the select board, who shall have the authority as agents of the town to institute and prosecute the same. That means that then the town collector does not in fact have the responsibility for any of that stuff. Is that correct? That it's all the town collector does is make a recommendation to the select board, and then the select board is the one that has the authority to decide for the town collector whether or not the suit should be brought.
I wish Steve Nally was on the call. He would be best. He's part of our group. He's also the treasurer. He'd be much better suited to answer that. But in Virginia or Brian, if you have any better answer than I do, feel free to share it. I think that's accurate, John. I think that's how things work. I don't think there's a lawsuit or anything like that gets forwarded on the town's behalf unless the select board approve it. Glenn, Jen, do you know any? Does that sound right? I believe that was our discussion from our group.
That does sound right, Al. The select board's got to approve anything that, as far as the town council will be doing for the town.
Yeah, I believe that that's the case right now. I just wonder how this fits together. I think the problem comes in, I'm having a difficult time understanding what it means for the town administrator to supervise the financial management of the town, encompassing the financial responsibilities and activities of the treasurer and town collector and so forth. Because the other thing that would say is that, first of all, then shouldn't the treasurer and the town collector be looking for the permission from the town administrator before they start looking for the permission from the select board?
I think the answer is yes. Brian, looks like you've unmuted. You have something to add?
Well, I was gonna go back to the town council, but you're correct, Al, in saying yes. I don't know, Al, whether we were, when we discussed this, there were a number of things that were on the table, and one of them was going before the town and asking for some of the elected officials to be appointed. So were we being proactive at that point in time when we wrote those things into the town administrator's agenda, or I can't remember.
That makes sense if they're appointed or they become town employees.
I think, John, and one more thing if I could add, please. I think the other thing was, I think that what we wanted the town administrator to do was not necessarily oversee, but to help them develop a sound financial plan for the town. And he would be the guy to oversee that, a guy or a gal to oversee that. And that's why we're working with that one. Again, this goes back to quite a number of months ago, and I'm trying to recollect at this point in time.
Yeah, I personally think that's absolutely critical. It doesn't not fit in exactly with the wording of supervising.
Correct.
So maybe need to go and look a little bit at the kind of wording that's used to better describe this coordination and overseeing principle as opposed to an actual management principle.
Yeah, soften it up a bit.
Yeah, and unless at the same time, unless you are proposing to do at the same time to make a change to the roles of the treasurer and the town collector and make them town employees rather than officials.
If I can answer that, I believe 2 elections have gone by since we discussed that. So I thought that could have been part of the idea a long time ago. So
I think your point is very well made, John, that we should probably revisit the wording there and let it reflect more accurately what we intended. I can tell you, like Brian said, our intention was to, give some sort of, I don't want to say the word authority to the town administrator to help or oversee, I'm not sure what the right word is, those positions that do have an important impact on the finances of the town, but also realizing that they're elected and, it's hard to mandate anything with the elections. I can tell you that we did get to the point where we decided not to change elected officials to appointed officials because there was a much larger charter change that had to occur. So again, to Brian's point, we talked about this a long time ago, but what we will do, like I said, is we'll take all these suggestions away from this public hearing, have another meeting of our board, and we'll dial that in for sure.
But you are right when you said it was Steve Nally, really, who pretty much spearheaded, had a lot of suggestions in that area.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I do see a question from Rich. I believe that's Rich Domaraki. Rich, if you can hear me, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Al. I had a question on the recall bylaw on section C, where it says the petition. It says if the affidavit process has been completed in compliance with the requirements of section B, it doesn't say who determines whether the affidavit process has been completed. So I would like you to consider adding afterwards says section B of this chapter as determined by the town attorney. So I think it's important enough to have the town attorney review the affidavit to make sure it's okay to go forward.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? Can you just write a brief suggestion and email it to me?
Yeah, I'll
About
do
that.
that.
I know what you said. It was very concise. But rather than me try to write it down and make it have the chance of me getting it wrong, if you could email me that question, I'll make sure that we address that in our next bylaw review meeting.
Okay, my second comment.
Sure.
It said said recall petition shall be returned and filed with the town clerk on the 28th day after the filing of the affidavit. Now, I notice up above, it says after the affidavit is filed, the town clerk has 5 days to issue the petition. So technically, the people whoever is getting the signatures doesn't have 28 days. They really could possibly have 23 days.
Okay.
If the town clerk uses all 5 days to prepare the petition, that getting 1,000 signatures in 21 or how many days?
23.
23 days seems kind of short. If you can at least make it 28.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. That's a great suggestion. Again, could you add that to that email as well?
Okay, I will.
And I'll
Thank
make
you.
sure. Yeah, thank you. I'll make sure that our group addresses it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Any more questions on the town clerk? I don't see anything in chat, and I don't see anybody waving their hands, so we'll keep moving. All right, so that was the review of the topics that we covered up to and through the last public hearing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start getting into the chapters that we have not addressed yet. So that first chapter and section that comes up first is the town collector. That we did change. What you're going to see with all of these, I should just say ahead of time, we reorganized them. There's the chapters and sections are different, although some of the content is exactly the same. For instance, the town collector is the new chapter 8. It used to be old chapter 4A. So in this, someone's phone is ringing. If you could mute, that'd be great. In the town collector area, we reorganized the existing wording and gave titles to different sections. The one thing that we did add was in section 2, we added the authority for the town collector to delegate collections, and I'm gonna bring that up just so people can see it. That's it right here. That was a suggestion. Again, I believe that came from Steve Nally. I don't want to give him credit for everything because he's not here, but I'm pretty sure that was his suggestion. Other than that, the wording of this chapter and section is exactly the same as the old. It just has different chapters and different sections. They're just numbered differently. I don't see anything in the chat. In terms of questions, does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. Well, bear with me while I get back. All right. So the next chapters and section dealt with town officials and town business. This is a new chapter 9, used to be chapter 5. Again, we changed the chapters and titled the sections. There's absolutely no changes in here whatsoever. We didn't change anything other than what it looks like. Any questions? I don't see anything in chat. Okay. So the next one that comes up is the committees appointed by the select board. That's new chapter 10, old chapter 7. Again, reorganize the titles and sections. We did add wording to clarify the removal of a member. It's now suggested to the appointing authority. Before it was really wide open about, I'm sorry, let me get out of this. It was really wide open as to what that process was. And so our board's discussion was basically that the committee that has the appointing authority for that board should really be the one who decides if somebody should be removed from that board. So that was a change in regards to this chapter and section. And the other change here, bear with me, was the alternate member voting rights. And I don't recall, I think this might have been Chris Martin, but at some point somewhere in a committee, there must have been more than one alternate member. And somehow they needed an alternate member to vote. And all this does is discuss what those alternate voting rights look like. And basically what it comes down to is it's about the continuous date of service. So whoever has been on, whatever alternate's been on the longest, votes first. I don't know the specific problem or even if one did actually come up, but that was a suggested change that we've incorporated into this section. Yeah,
Al?
go ahead, John. Yep.
I want to thank whoever decided to put in the section 3 on the petition to remove a member. These seems like a small thing, but we actually ran into the situation years ago. We had someone who was appointed to the finance committee and just never came to a meeting. And it was very, very difficult to figure out how we go about asking the person to leave or and get a new member appointed. It finally worked out by the person agreeing to resign from the committee, because that procedure was well noted. But this is a very good idea to include this in here. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And that was one of the things that we've been back and forth on so many different things here. It's funny because every once in a while you touch upon something and go, how has this not been a major problem so far? And maybe it's because of situations like you just referenced where you find an alternate way to kind of deal with it. But if that person wasn't so accommodating, you could have had a problem on your hands. So yeah, it's funny how these things come up. Any other questions or comments about this section? Okay, keep moving. So the next chapter and section that comes up is the regulations of traffic and motor vehicles. Again, it's a new chapter and section. Used to be 11. I'm sorry, it is now 11. Used to be 8. Same changes to the titles and chapters. We also, for all of the suggested or proposed bylaws, we decided to take the penalties out of the specific bylaws and shift them to the appendix penalties page. It just seemed to make more sense because what happens with the bylaws as they evolve, something will change. Like for instance, a new motor vehicle bylaw will be passed. And in that bylaw will be referenced the fine for it. And then the next bylaw that's been around for 5 years doesn't have the fine in it. So basically what we did is we took all this penalty specific info related to any of the bylaws and we shifted over to the appendix. So it's all in one spot. That's where it is. You know where it is. We also added a section here for zero emissions vehicle parking regulations. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was a suggestion from Jay Joyce. I don't remember the specifics of the issue and probably doesn't matter, but it's certainly Jay had brought forward and said, hey, we now have these zero emissions parking places, charging spots. We can't have people parking in them. And so that the change we made there just includes that into our parking bylaws. One of the
Basically,
yeah.
basically, when the town gets the EV charges, they sign a contract. And the contract states specifically that no vehicles will be allowed to be in the EV charger parking spots unless they are actually being charged. And then when we brought that, and Mass DEP actually did drive through Granby, and they noted at the school there was non-EV cars or vehicles parking in those spots. And they brought it to our attention, and we brought it to the police attention, which is Al. And he said, well, not in the bylaws, nothing I can do about it. And the town has signed a contract and agreed to enforce it. So we have to give our police department the authority to enforce the contract the town had already signed. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think the way that the town responded was when I say we, I believe that Chris and the select board had a conversation with all the buildings and the department heads who have those EV chargers and said, look, it's up to you to stop this right now because we don't have a bylaw in effect, so it can't really be enforced from a citation type of standpoint. And Jay, if I'm not mistaken, things have been better just by having those conversations. Is that correct?
Oh, I don't know, be perfectly honest with you, because I don't know if Mass DEP and Mass DOER has traveled through the town since the last time and notified any violations. None have been reported. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any either, but no, that your synopsis of how we got to adding those in is right on. We needed it. It's a change to town with the EV chargers. So again, we're slowly getting them to where they need to be. So Jay, thanks for the input on that.
No problem. And as far as the zero emissions on vehicle parkings, that came out from the green community requirement that the town has signed up to be in there.
Yeah, I recall you were saying that, right? Part of the grant there, we had to abide by the rules, right?
That's correct, sir.
Excellent, thank you. So one of the other changes to this area is we added an area for drone regulations. That's something that's over the last couple of years become a real big hot spot. There's a lot to it. They're all over the place. There's a lot of regulations from the federal government about them. Our bylaws basically mimic those. Prior to this proposed bylaw with these added drone regulations, we had nothing. So it was basically, it would fall on whatever the FAA regulations or federal regulations were. And so these basically mimic those, but are enforceable at a local level. And I'd be happy to show those if anybody'd like to see them. But again, in this format, I know you have access to them. If there's anybody that doesn't and would like to see it, I certainly can bring it up for you. Are there any questions or comments related to any of the drone or any of the traffic regulations or traffic of motor vehicles?
Al, I just have a recommendation in regards to the drones.
Sure.
I think when we get to the point where we bring it to the town meeting, that we do get the most updated part from the FAA, because as we know, that probably changes, every single month sometimes, so I think it'd be good for us to get the most updated information from them before we go to town meeting.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, because the reality of it is, we don't want to have anything that's contradictory or anything like that. And that's the beauty of the bylaws too, is being a kind of a living document. Things are going to change, not just the drone bylaws, but everything changes. And having the flexibility to change is really important. But to your point, even more important is to make sure that, whatever you go forward and vote on tomorrow is up to date today. So I think that's a great suggestion, and I've got that noted. It's great. Any other comments or questions related to traffic and motor vehicles? Okay. Tag sales and flea markets. We made significant changes here. I would call them significant. Again, it's been retitled and rechaptered. We are suggesting that we change the hours of tag sales from 72 hours to 48 hours. And we were going to increase, we were proposing to increase the number of tag sales from 2 per year to 4 for any one resident. And the flea markets as well, there'd be no flea markets setting up before 7 a.m. And we're also suggesting changing the number of flea markets from 2 per year to 4 per year. Those are basically the big changes in this chapter. They're not new, meaning we have tag sale bylaws and flea market bylaws as well. This just it just changes how they are, how many you can have, the duration, and when you can start. Go ahead, John.
So the change from 72 hours to 48 hours means that would no longer be allowed to have a tag sale that went over a 3-day weekend after a holiday weekend.
Correct. And we had a discussion about that, and I honestly do not remember how we ended up coming up with that. I would ask the other committee members if they recall it. We recognized that and decided to stick with it. And I can't recall exactly why we did that. I'd have to go back through my notes in the minutes to see if we actually said why we did that. Again, Virginia or Brian, do you recall? I
think I was out of state, Al.
What was that?
I think I was out of state.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hear you.
Check Virginia's memory.
Is that your excuse and you're sticking to it?
Did it have something to do with the Monday holidays and the scarcity of the Monday holidays?
It may have, and I guess I somewhat recollect looking at it and thinking the conversation had something to do with, isn't 2 days of a tag sale, a 3-day weekend in your neighborhood enough? Your neighbor's perspective. I think that was a piece of how we were looking at it. I also think that what Virginia just said is that the Monday holidays aren't, there isn't 20 of them. So, but if that was a question, John, yes, we recognize and talked about removing it down to the 48 hours.
That might be a question that would come up at the meeting.
Yeah. I'm just writing down some of these. Okay. Again, not setting up the flea markets before 7 o'clock in the morning. Again, I'm pretty sure that was a suggestion from Chris Martin, which again, it makes sense. If you live next to a business that's going to have a flea market, you don't mind them starting at 7, but you'd probably rather not have them there at 5 o'clock in the morning setting up on a Saturday or a Sunday, right? So, but those are essentially the changes. Any questions or comments on any of these? I don't see anything in chat. I'm going to double check it anyway. Okay. All right. We'll keep moving. So the bylaws, the new section, chapter 8 used to be chapter 9. Again, same reorganization of the chapters and titles. The biggest change we did here was we changed the number of years for the review of the bylaws from 2 years to 5 years. And we did that for a couple of reasons. The first reason is it's quite a process. And keep in mind, last time these were done were better than 20-something years ago. So we're dealing with a document that's way outdated, hasn't been updated in that amount of time. So, but we also looked at it from the perspective of, if you were to try to do it every 2 years, you would have to have that bylaw committee constantly working from the day that you passed them to the day, till the end of that 2-year period. So we thought 5 years was a much more reasonable time period. We also thought that if we had a more reasonable time period for review, that the town would probably be more likely to keep up with them. So that's why we decided to go from 2 years to 5 years, because it is such an undertaking, and we thought it made more sense. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the bylaws can't change in between, because they can, and sometimes they have to. So the bylaws can change from month to month. John?
I had expected to see a third section in there that said that no member of a previous bylaw committee is ever expected to work on one again.
I can tell you it's been suggested. It's been suggested, but I'll tell you, it's been a great learning process, though. It's a great group of people. I've learned a lot, and I've enjoyed it a lot. But yeah, I can't say that conversation didn't come up.
I think that was yours, Al.
It might have been. It might have been.
In here, I was gonna suggest that one member of the committee should always be on the next one, just as carryover.
Yeah, as long as he's chief of police, right?
I don't know about that, but yeah, no, that's how the wording is now, and it's important to have kind of that continuity. I think that going into this, I had no idea, what we were getting into, and I think that having somebody on there that's been through it before makes a lot of sense. But good luck finding somebody. Anyway.
Al?
Yes.
Just to support that, we've been at this how many years now?
I think it's 5 years.
5 years. How many members?
We've been, geez, let me think about that. I'll bet you in the 4 or 5 years that we've been doing this, there's 5 now. Oh, 10 or better. 10 or better.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of people, we've lost some people to, going to other jurisdictions. Fire Chief Russ Anderson was on our committee.
Marty?
Marty, yeah, absolutely. We've lost a lot of people, and it's such a process. It's not something that takes 2 weeks. And so just like anything else, people move on, and they take on other responsibilities. Life things change, circumstances change. But there's been at least 10, if not closer to 15 members of this board over that time.
Yes, at this point, there's been over 200 meetings easily.
It's been a lot. It's been a lot of meetings. So, and that doesn't include, the research time afterwards, and all the information that we got from the public and from all the other departments and department heads, and like the finance committee, and it's just been a great collaboration. So, while it's taken a long time,
I'm sorry, I just want people out there understand why we're suggesting every 5 years, not every 2. Because it does take so long. It does take a lot of input. It takes a lot of time to dig up information.
Al, if
Yeah.
I could make one suggestion.
Sure.
And it kind of goes to the point you kind of made, so did Jen, where if the select board appoints a 5-member committee, and it's good for 5 years, after those 5 years, that whole board's gone. It would be nice, I don't know how we could do it, but if we had someone, if we appoint a new member, I don't know, every 3 years or 5 or something, so there is a carryover. So gee, if that new board starts, they know what the other board talked about and changed, and some of the thought process and why they changed some things. It's almost like you get rid of a whole board, you bring in a whole new committee, and they're gonna look at everything, and they may look at everything different and understand why someone made some changes that were made. It's just a thought. I mean, I know sometimes when you're taking a whole new committee, sometimes it's difficult too. You don't have anybody from before that understood what was going on, the prior committees and stuff like that. So I almost look at it as the way we do with elections for certain board elections, like the select board, the planning board. It's always a member that is could be replaced for that reason. So you're not losing a whole board or a committee at one particular time. Just a
But you know
thought.
what can happen doing that way? When you have someone that has come in the middle, it's very easy for that someone to say, oh, I wouldn't have done it, that way, when they're looking back over it, and have you then go back to re-questioning what however many people there were. 4 people have spent, hours and weeks on it. Very much depends on the congeniality, I guess might be the right word, of the person that comes on. Are they willing to go along with and understand this really was the reasoning of the 5 people that put in all this time and effort? That's all.
Yeah,
But I understand
Glenn, to your point is a very good one, is trying to keep some continuity. But what we did find, and what added to a lot of why this has taken so long, is exactly what Virginia just said. We would get through, and I'm gonna make it up. We would get through, say, the budget process, and then we would lose a member or 2, and then 2 more people would come in, and we would start that. We would be 4 chapters away, and we'd start that discussion again. And then you start to get, it's hard to get out of a discussion when all of a sudden someone's making some valid points, and so you get this back and forth. And I will say, to your point, the reason why I think this committee has been really good is because we've been represented. Our committee represents so many different pieces of town. We've got select board members, we've got the town administrator, we've had people involved with all aspects of the how the town runs, and department heads and administrators and teachers and library commissioners. I mean, throughout all the people that we've had moderators on our committee, and that knowledge goes to exactly what you're saying about, I have no idea why something was related to, the way that we did something in town 20 years ago. However, and I'm sorry, Brian, but Brian probably knows why it happened. Virginia might know why something happened, but because they were involved in things. Al Bale is a ridiculous amount of just information about the town, how we got from A to B. He has been just invaluable in terms of his knowledge and his just history of how things got from A to B. And so it's really important to have people that are connected to town and have history in town. The drawback that Virginia mentioned is absolutely accurate. And the only other problem with that is, if you were to try to do that, the committee would have to always be up and running. You would always have to have that bylaw review committee up and running. And maybe that's the direction the town wants to go in. Right now, the way that it's going, well, there is no way it's going. It's going because this is the first time we've done it in 20 years. The way that we kind of foresaw it, or the way that the bylaws kind of projected it, was that, okay, this bylaw review committee is going to do it, get us to where we need to go, and then 2 or 3 years down the road, you're going to get another committee in place, and they're going to do the same thing. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. There's no reason why a 5-person committee cannot be appointed on an annual basis. And there's no reason why that committee can meet maybe 4 times a year and to discuss a particular bylaw problem that may have come up, or a new, like as an example, the drones. That's brand new. That's a whole new issue that could be discussed and added in at the annual town meeting, instead of that many, just that many at the annual town meeting. And just keep that bylaw review committee going. You can change them at will. And at least, as long as you have 3 people that have been there that can discuss with the new members, there's no reason why you can't continue to reappoint it every year instead of appointing it every 3 to 4 or 5 years.
That's actually a very good point. And I think that I think what we should do is we should take this area and try to bring it back to our committee and try to see if there's a way that we can incorporate that, because it probably makes a lot of sense, even from the perspective to have that bylaw review committee be up and running, even if they're not reviewing the entire document. From time to time, bylaws need to change for legal reasons, for whatever. And maybe it makes sense to have that body appointed every year up and running. So if, for instance, the finance committee says, hey, we need to have a bylaw change because there's a new legislation that says all of our revolving accounts need to be listed in our bylaws. Well, it would be great to have that committee, named anyway, so they would be able to review whatever suggested bylaws are going to go before town, just to make sure that they coincide with everything else in the bylaws. I think I've never been a select board member, but I think it would be great to have a committee that's well informed about the process and the existing document, to kind of handle some of the legwork related to any bylaw changes that need to come up in between those major reviews.
Yeah, and I would agree, Al, and that's the kind of the point I was making too, where, just imagine if you had 3 new select board members come in, every 3 years, and you kind of start over, and, so that's kind of exactly what I was kind of, talking about. So, and the perfect example I think you talked about earlier was when Jay had brought up about, ticketing vehicles in the parking space. That's something that could come up, and like you said, it's a change to a bylaw. There's no one saying we have to change 20 bylaws every 5 years. It'd be nice if we change 1 or 2 every year, or if they need to be changed or reviewed. I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I agree that these observations are very important. The reason I think you have so much work to do is because it's been 20 years and you're looking at the whole body of the bylaws. Whereas what really needs to happen is that as things change from year to year, you have to ask, are those changes already accompanyable by the current bylaws, or should something be added for the particular bylaws? But it's unusual that you would expect to see 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 sections of the bylaw needing to be changed in a given year. So it's easier to keep up with it by making 1 or 2 changes a year, which could be called for. Undoubtedly be that many.
I'll give you an example. In 2021, when Mass DOT comes and do the improvements on Route 202, who's going to do the bylaw to tell who's going to clean the sidewalks? If there's no bylaw, then the town's automatically responsible for it. And whenever the town or the state does a contractual change, a lot of times it does affect the internal functions for the bylaws of the town.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, in 2021, when Mass DOT come through and they update 202 and sidewalks on both sides of the streets, who's going to clean it? That's the question right now. Are we going to do like other towns and put a bylaw in where the property owner has 24 hours to clean it after a storm? Or we're going to be silent on it, whereas the town is financially required to clean all of them?
Yeah, and that would be the perfect opportunity for a seated bylaw review committee to kind of do some research, see what other, similarly situated towns are doing, and get it in place before it's too late. To your point, Jay. Yeah, it's a good suggestion. So Glenn, I think what we'll do is we'll take your suggestion back to the committee again. I think it's a good one, and we'll review it and see if there's a way that we can incorporate it in. That's great. Any other questions or comments about the bylaws piece of it? I don't see anyone. I don't see any chat. Okay, we'll keep moving. Again, the penalty section of the bylaws, new section, old chapter, those things have changed like everything else has. We also added fines to the schedule for sections that weren't mentioned in the list. And again, like I said before, because the bylaws are a living document and they change from time to time, while we haven't reviewed them in 20 years in their totality, they have changed significantly, in pieces along the way. And so there were a lot of different types of, or different areas where the penalties weren't actually transposed into the penalty section of the bylaws. So that was a change. Again, it's really not a major change in terms of any content or anything like that. We just kind of moved things and more of an organizational change than anything else, kind of tidied it up. Any questions in regards to the penalty area? No? Okay. All right, Board of Appeals, it's just located somewhere else. It's a new chapter, same wording. Nothing has changed in regards to it other than the chapter is chapter 15. It used to be chapter 7. Jen, is that a hand? Or... Okay, all right. I'm looking at very small pictures, so it's hard to tell. Any questions, comments? Nothing in chat?
I think Jennifer's sneaking food, and that's why you saw her hand.
Oh, okay. Got it. Is it 6:15? You said
Sorry.
6:15. All right, we'll keep moving. Same thing with the gas inspector, just it's a new chapter, same wording, absolutely no changes other than the reorganization. If anybody has any comments or questions, be happy to answer them. Okay, having seen none, I'll keep moving. So the animal control area, this is actually there's a lot of significant changes here. It's other than it was chapter 17, it's now, I'm sorry, it is 17 now, it used to be 14. A lot of these changes that we're a lot of these changes that we're suggesting are related to animal control legislation that was passed several years ago. We, in spirit, have been enforcing the law in terms of the way that the law is now, but we certainly need our animal control law to change from just the dog bylaw. So really, this is almost completely new in terms of regulations for the town. And like I mentioned, the strong majority of these bylaw additions are determined and directed by that legislation change. So we can certainly go through it. Some of the things that I know people are very interested in are, we made some, right now, Granby does not have a leash law. We have what's called the dog, like a control law. So if the dog is under your control in Granby, as of right now, hypothetically does not need to be on a leash. We've changed that. There's a lot of wording that allows people on their own property to still have their dogs off leash as long as they're under their control. We've set up other situations where dogs can be off leash under their control, whether for hunting purposes, for sporting purposes, for dog shows, on the property of another person that they have permission to do it on. So it doesn't completely say no matter where you go, you have to have your dog on a leash. So we think we did a pretty decent job of kind of taking what we had and incorporating, you know, a more structured control / leash law. We also made a bunch of changes to this since the last public hearing. We had some residents who brought up some great suggestions about some of the wording related. One in particular was related to the inspections of a home-based kennel, where someone said, look, I'm not a big breeder. I have like a handful, 3 or 4 dogs that I breed. They live in my house with me. It's kind of a different invasion of privacy for you to come into my house and, you know, check out my house. So we did make some accommodations for that due to those suggestions. One of the things that came in today, I spoke with a resident today who, I don't know if she's here. Kim, are you on the line? Kim Goldsmith? Okay, so Kim's not here. So I said that I told her I would bring up her suggestion. One of the things that she had suggested was in the animal control area where in regards to inspections, the area says that if there's a negative finding in terms of an inspection, it allows 10 days for the owner to correct it. Her suggestion was that there's an area of the law for a failed inspection remedy. It's under chapter 140, 174. And basically it outlines more specifically what a failed inspection is. So she was suggesting that we adopt that wording for that area. So while we won't take, I don't have that wording right now. I did tell her that if she wasn't able to get on the line tonight or on the call tonight, that I would make sure that we brought up her suggestion at the, at a subsequent bylaw review meeting. So like I said, there's pretty substantive changes to it. It's much longer, it's much more all-inclusive, and I don't know if anybody who has any questions or comments about it. I'm just gonna check chat. I don't see anything in chat. I don't see any hands waving. Okay, we'll keep going. So the board in the old bylaws, or I shouldn't say the old, in our existing bylaws, there is a bylaw that references a Board of Health election. And again, I know this seems very convenient that I'm blaming all these things on people that aren't here right now, but we had a lot of conversation about why would we have a Board of Health election kind of enumerated in our bylaws, yet there's no other election whatsoever. So we had done some research and found that nobody seems to know why that's there. So seeing as how there didn't seem to be a purpose or a premise, we decided to remove it. And I believe, again, Steve Nally was one of the kind of people who brought this up with his experience with the Board of Health. So I don't know if there's anybody on that has any experience or anything, any comments or questions related to this. That's kind of how we got to where we removed it. We said if there's no reason for it to be there, why should it be? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, folks, so those are the sections that we were supposed to be taking care of tonight. Again, one of the things I just want to say is, again, this is a living document. Even when we get to the point where the town votes on whatever it is the town wants at town meeting, there's always going to be the opportunity for change. It's not written in stone. Certainly has to go through the process again for any changes that would be made. But again, it's a living document. It changes as we wish it to change. In terms of a next meeting date, we really don't have one. I'm going to have to talk to Kathy and Chris and well, actually our committee as well. And what we'll do just for the next meeting, just like we did for this, we're going to go back. We're going to review all the suggestions that everybody put forward. We're going to try to incorporate the things that we think should be incorporated, and we'll review those again, kind of at the premise or the beginning of the next public hearing, which will hopefully be our last one. And then we'll get into the last, let's see, 7 chapters or so that we haven't covered, meaning chapters 18 through 25. So, before we close down, is there anything else that anybody would like to discuss? Any questions? I see, John, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I had a few questions about some of the things in the earlier chapters. There are questions maybe just for some clarification about what the intention was and whether they included or precluded certain things. But I can, if you invite me to your next committee meeting, I can just ask them there rather than ask them now if you prefer.
We can do both, or yeah, I mean, if you think it's better that way, that's totally fine.
Excuse me?
Either way, John, whatever way you think it's better handled.
I can do them at just your regular meeting. It wouldn't take up time now. They're some of them, they're just basically minor questions about a couple of wording in a couple places. So I'd be happy to do it at your next meeting.
Sure. Did you want to, if you wanted to email me those questions,
okay,
that way I can do our committee ahead of time, that way we can actually talk intelligently about it.
Great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any comments, questions?
Al, I do have one comment. I truly want to thank you, Steve, Brian, Virginia. Am I missing anybody else that's on the committee?
Chris?
And Chris, I think speaking for the select board, really thank you for the time and effort that you're putting into this. I know I had the pleasure not too long ago to work with you on the marijuana bylaw committee, and it's definitely no easy task. And going through the public hearings and things like that, and input and changing things and stuff like that, it's definitely a lot of time and effort. And I greatly appreciate it just as a resident. And not even speaking as a select board member, but because I know a lot of time and effort goes into it, and these are people that are volunteering their time for the goodness of the town. So really, thank you, and thank you to all of your members. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn. We really appreciate that. And, you know, it's been a long road, but I'd like to say that from my perspective, it's actually been fun. I've learned a lot. It's a great group of people who aren't afraid to roll their kind of sleeves up and get their hands into it. And it isn't just us. It's been a lot of input from, like I said, the town in general. And without their input, it just wouldn't be anywhere near as successful. So thank you very much for those kind words. It's really good to hear. But we're having fun to some extent too, I think. But so
I'll remember you said that we're having fun. I'll remember that.
I'm saying that because we're nearing the end. No, I say that 100% honestly. It's been a great group of people, and I've learned a ton. I know that. So, but if anybody has any questions or comments that come up or that they think of afterwards that they would like our committee to either look at or even discuss, you can certainly email them to me at the email address there on the screen. That's the police department's phone number as well. You know, call me anytime. But I thank you all for your input and taking the time to be part of this public hearing. And hopefully we can get a meeting in the next week or two and get squared away for our next and hopefully final public hearing, and then maybe get this moved forward so we can appoint new members to the bylaw review committee. So that's the plan. All right, so if there's nothing else in regards to the public hearing, I thank you all, and I shift it back to you, Glenn. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you, Al. Well,
Thank you,
at
Al.
this time, from the select board members, a motion to adjourn. We have nothing else to bring up at this time.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, folks. Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
This conference is no longer being recorded.